Ah!
Hello everyone, this is DD1 here, and today we are going to be doing the second development story video I have done. The first one was on the Dr. Shivers life-size character by Gemmy, 2006-2007, and then in 2011. And today's episode is going to be on Count Vigor the Vampire. Now this character is one of the classic Gemmy characters. It was initially done for Spirit Halloween in the 2006 season, and then they made it again in 2007 for other stores to carry. And man, is there a lot of history with this. Frankly, this will be a much longer video than if I had done a video on the snowflake spinning snowman. I just have so much more information on this guy. And I did do a poll recently where people could decide on what I should do next, and ultimately between the two polls I did, this was the winner just barely. It was a very close margin and a lot of votes, so thank you guys for participating in that. But yeah, there's a lot to get into here, and I do have some development notes that I will read out to you. I have some concept art and some development photos and a couple videos, so let's get into it. So first of all, on the left here we have the concept art for Count Vigor, and funny enough, they just, when it was done, there was really not too much that had to be drawn. A lot of it was just kind of picking and choosing from various different other items. So this is Photoshop on a photo that was originally taken excuse me, of a very early Scrooge life-size character, like the one that Robert Beard owns. So that was the initial design. Was they had a photo of the Scrooge, and then there was some Photoshop, made the vest red, added the goblet from, you know, the pirate skeleton, party monster, all of that. Had hands like the party monster, and then there is a Dr. Shivers head that is edited on there, and then one of the few things that's actually drawn in is the hair. So you can see that's actually original artwork there, as well as the collar here, but a lot of it is really just manipulation of what already existed, which is really cool. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this image here. This is one that is very common, but I have a really large copy. This is the one on the box. So this is a pretty final sample for the 2006 model. You can see there's several differences between the original art and this, but overall it still came out a really solid piece, I gotta say. And now we are going to get into some of the really juicy stuff. So,
Well, you may be familiar with the factory video of Count Vigor that is out there. Braden, if you guys remember him, and I, were really into the old Spirit Halloween website stuff, and I think it was around 2015, Spirit completely wiped their database of any old audio files and videos and things like that. They kept photos, but they got rid of the videos. I had screen recorded, and I think 2014, the Count Vigor factory video, but then, Braden was ahead of me at that time, technologically speaking, I guess, and he actually got the raw file and uploaded that at some point, and because of him, we have the raw video file today.
because that was the only copy that was saved, publicly by anybody. And in that video, sorry, I have like a bunch of things pulled up here. This video. So in this video, it's very pixely and grainy.
The original video size, and I played it in the different video player, but I was lazy and opened 3 different things in 3 different players. It would look a little clearer, but it's a really small sized video. Like the actual video itself is small. And this really helped back in the day with emailing and things like that to have a very, small file size.
But many people have been enamored with this particular prototype for years now. And there's several things to note. The head is a different shape, the collar stands up differently, and the eyes actually stay lit the entire phrase and then fade out at the end versus flashing to the words whenever the mouth moves, like in production. So those are all very different, along with the fact that the audio is mixed a little differently. And I'll play through some of this video, but if you want to watch the whole thing, you can find it in a much, better copy from just me recording the monitor here on YouTube, just so you can see how different that is if you're not familiar. Also very rapid movement. So you can see the eyes fade out at the end, and he has an additional laugh at the end of that phrase. And this does have an EEPROM. You can tell by the speed. It's just harder to tell because the second gen Vigors are higher pitched than the first gens, but compared to the first gen Vigor, this is really high pitch. And with EEPROM items, if you don't know, that actually is the speed versus just the pitch of the audio, so that's why he's also moving a lot quicker than in production. Now there's that video, and then just to throw it in here, for 2007 they got a sample or prototype of the second gen, and they filmed that in the studio. And this is a very classic video here. And you can tell the audio is extra amplified and higher pitch. And something interesting about 2007 life sizes is, in general, they actually amplified the audio on a lot of the life sizes. So if you think about like Gray-Haired Butler or Count Vigor for 2007, without volume control, the sound is very amplified. And in the prototyping stages for the 2007 items, for some of them they look quite literally just stuck a kind of thrown together amplifier on the board, which in some cases was just way too much and way over the top. But they did tone it down a little bit in production, but that's why the 2006 model is a lot quieter. I don't know the reason why the pitch is so much higher. Now, we're going to start to get into the actual factory photos, which are by far the most interesting part of this video, and there are a good many of those. And some of these are in order, some of them are not, but I can just, tell you roughly the age. In fact, I think I'll actually pause the video. So to start off, we're just going to look at the back here, and I will, gradually get into the more interesting photos, but this is what I believe to be the earliest photographed or noted in the archive here, the earliest Count Vigor ever made. This is actually pretty notably earlier than the one in the factory video, which might surprise a bunch of people. One thing to take note of, I'm not sure how well you can tell, this is actually the nicer fabric that's used on the Phantom and the 2005 Edwardian Butlers and the Wrapping Butler. So it's that really soft to the touch fabric that's a little thicker, you can't really see through it, stuff like that. In production, the 06 Vigor got the 2006 and up Edwardian Butler fabric, which is not bad, but it definitely costs a little bit less to use. Right off the bat, you can just see the shaping is pretty different in the costume. That hand is a different color, and the base is looking a little different there. Here's a side profile. So, as you can see, the posture is looking pretty different. And the head is looking very different so far, especially the color of the skin. And here's another side profile from the other side, so you can see that's some really crazy stuff right there. And I'll pay more attention to the face details when we look at the front. So here is the front, and man oh man is this different. This is a really different take on Vigor compared to even the one in the factory video that you guys are all familiar with. So you can see, first of all, there is no purple button on the base because the 2006 items, the early prototypes, were made in 2005 when the purple button did not yet exist. You can see the skin tone is almost the color of the resin used on the items, which is kind of ironic, but it's kind of very different from production. You can see the vest seems to be a darker red, and then look at that face. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? So you can see he has purple around the eyes, the mouth is shut really tight, the hair is kind of a different hairline pattern, amongst many other things. This is just a very, jarring contrast. And here's one that, my bad, this is actually a little bit earlier than and this one here. This one was photographed November 2nd, and this one was photographed October 28th of the year prior. So you can see really just how different they are. The first one here doesn't really have as much of a neck. The costume layout is different. The fabric is the same fabric material as, the collar up here. Just very different shaping with the outfit here. So wildly different just between those few days. I know from working overseas, there can be a lot of revisions that happen. So now we're going to go ahead and look at the next oldest. Here's the guy that you've watched all those years in a pixely video, but you see all of him. And the reason the video was filmed so high up is because the hands were actually still this original color from the previous prototype. As you can see, there's quite the contrast there, and so because of that, they filmed it pretty cropped, so you wouldn't see that, which was obviously wrong at the time. You can see he did not have the purple button yet, and you can see that head that people really like. And really the mask is not even, I'm pretty sure it's still the same sculpt, like exactly actually. But a big difference is that the underskull is shaped differently, which is why the head looks a little more thin, narrow, things like that, and produces more rounded. That's just how the underskull is shaped. And here's another look at him from up above. This is the exact same one. You can see the hairline's a little goofy there, but you can still see just so many of the nice details on this piece. And would you look at that, there's a familiar face in the background. You might recognize him as of a few days ago, and if you guys want more information on that, please comment down below. That's the only way I know to do videos, obviously. Here's a close-up look at the face. Again, this is the same one from the factory video, so you are getting a nice HD shot of that exact one. And I gotta say, it's a very nice prototype here. It's really crazy that back in the day, Spirit and a couple other retailers would just put the factory videos on their website. Like they wouldn't bother filming it, or they were in too much of a rush to wait for Gemmy to actually film a proper studio video. They just threw the factory video up there, which is kind of shocking, honestly, if you think about it. I mean, even in recent years, Walmart has done things like that. Party City did it this year with some factory videos of some of their items. And this is the same one again. So here is his head from the side. You can see it's just proportioned way differently His hairline is very different. All sorts of differences there. It's a really, really neat piece. And here he is from the other side. You can see that the hairline is very different on both sides, and there was a revision made that showed, hey, we need to fix this hairline here. So there's just a good look of that from the side. They might have just been doing it differently on both sides just to see what will look better. And on my prototype graves, the fat blower, that's actually the case with the paint. The pink lines in the grooves in his skin on his head are darker on one half of the head versus the other, so that was them just experimenting to see which would look better. And this is the same one, photographed February 14th, 2006. That's when all these photos in the video would have been taken. So you can see how the mouth looks on the inside there. And here's a quick little edit that was made to show that, hey, the hairline is too far back, we need to make it a little bit different. Now up next is a Count Vigor that was photographed on February 18th. So the previous one was on the 14th, and this is just 4 days later. So several things to take note of here. And keep in mind, some of these prototypes that I've shown, it's the same body, but like the head and hands are changed out, things like that. So it's not always that case where they reuse the body, but on some of these it is the same body, in case anything looks familiar. But with this one, really the main changes are that the hands are actually the proper color and the eyebrows are removed and the hairline was changed. So here's a close-up look at Vigor. You can see he does not have the eyebrows. You can see that the hairline is a little more proportioned out there. And you can see whether it's intended or not, it's actually kind of at an angle the way he's looking at you. So here he is from the side. You can see that on the new head it's quite different. You can see that they actually painted a hairline there as well, which is really interesting. That was not done in production. And it's just the photos, but it makes his ears look really large. So here he is with his hand next to him. It's a neat photo there. Again, this is photographed on February 18th of 2006. And you can see the lines in his skin are actually quite pink. It's a neat little detail there. I'm going to jump ahead to March 28th. And in that time, you probably would have had things happen, like the sample you previously saw was probably sent either to the Gemmy building or to the Spirit Spencer's headquarters for the buyers, which would be Spirit, to review the sample and then comment on any changes, things like that. Especially with pieces that were, made exclusively for a store, you would see things like that happening where you would have a sample sent straight to the buyer versus maybe, send it to the Gemmy building for the Gemmy employees to tinker with. So it just depended on the item, really. But with this one, you can see the eyebrows have returned. There are veins on the eyeballs. And something that's just really unique is that the pink lines in the skin are actually still painted over where the eyes are painted black. And I just think, that's just a really freaky look. And there are a lot of, hand-drawn veins on the eyes. And it's really peculiar because for 2007 they gave him veins on his eyeballs, but in 2006 he did not have veins. You can see the eyebrows are just painted on. They kind of look like tattooed eyebrows. They didn't really do the, more details on there to make them look real. And you can tell just how hand-painted this whole head is. And overall, he just has a very different look in his face. So there he is from the side. You know, it's funny, this particular photo, it says it was taken March 27th, but it's listed as being March 28th, so not that any of you really care, but some of the dates may be slightly off. There he is from the other side. You can see that the hairline is relatively evened out. Then we get to April 18th, so at this point, Vigor still does not have a purple button yet. You know, there's been several changes made. You know, definitely by this point he has the 2006 Edwardian Butler fabric, I believe. Kind of hard to tell in some of these photos. The hands and head are a little more pinkish versus just gray. There's a slight hint of pink in them. And you can see that the head is looking pretty different there. A lot of these changes had to do with the head ultimately. There he is from the back. Not all that interesting. There's a side profile. Despite it being April 18th of 2006, the year this was released, the head is still looking pretty different from production. You know, it's starting to look a little more rounded, but not quite there. There he is again. Here's a close-up of that head for the one photographed April 18th. You can see he's got a big grin there. A lot of this is shaped very differently. And the eyebrows are painted on differently as well. So there's his eyebrows. You can see they actually drew individual hairs on there instead of just making them look tattooed. There's like a big red line in his head there. Almost looks like he was injured. You can see how they did that. And there's actually a revision photo where they photoshopped the picture to show, hey, we want it to look more like this. And here is that photo. So you can see that the eyebrows, like the initial black lines from that previous sample, are put back, but then there's gray lines drawn on there, which is an interesting illusion. So you can see that is pretty different from what you just saw. That brings me back to the stock photo here. So obviously there is a big gap between this and the last sample or prototype that was photographed in the factory. You can tell the head is rounded like in production, so that has that new head shell. You can tell that the base has a purple button on it. Some of the stock photos, mainly on the box, they actually photoshopped the button on and it's just really obvious, but with this you can tell there's actually a purple button on there. Either that or it's just incredible Photoshop work. And I do have the audio file queued up here, so we'll just listen to a phrase, because why not?
Ah, good evening. I am so pleased to see you could make it. Come, we are expecting you for dinner.
So you can tell that's actually really low pitch, and first gen was a little higher than that, and second gen was even higher. And I did talk with the original voice actor Clint, and he did say that in that particular audio file they did pitch it down a little bit from the original, which is interesting. So it's like they pitched it down and they went back up to the original recording's pitch. And then in production for 07 they made it even higher. And now we're just going to look at a produced 06 and 07. So here we have a first gen Count Vigor filmed by a friend of mine. The first gen was only sold exclusively at Spirit Halloween in 2006. And you can see it's got some similarities to the stock photo. The hair is not as short. The lighting is not the best for this photo, but it's decent. And I'll just play through this. I just want to use this video because it's a first gen that has actually not been worked on at all. This was filmed, it says, 10 years ago. So that's part of the reasoning for that. And the head turn is a little locked up on that one, but you can see that the pitch is a little bit higher than the audio file I played, but still kind of deeper. It's a classic video that many of you have watched over the years, and this is a second gen, and it just works really well, so I want to show it in particular, although there is clearer, more HD footage out there. So you'll notice that the pitch is higher, you might see the veins on the eyebrows, and the eye lights are actually wired opposite, so they light up when the mouth closes instead of opening. So that's the second gen. Some of them are a little higher pitched than that. The hands and the head here. This one is in overall terrible condition in this shot here, but you can see that the hand and head are a lot more gray. They're much darker colored gray. And it is faded, but you can't really tell in the video actually that I'm filming. But the black parts of the fabric for the clothing, whether it's the cape or the pants or any of that, it's more of a nylon kind of material. It's not like inflatable fabric, but it's kind of towards that. The red lining on the inside of the cape is kind of like inflatable fabric though. I have a pretty late sample for 07, and the mouth is actually painted a different color of gray kinda inside versus purple, because in all of them the mouth is painted purple on the inside. You can see the veins in the eyes there. But yeah, that just about does it for Vigor development story. You can tell that a lot of changes happened, a lot was revised. There are some notes that I can quickly read through here. However, I'm pretty sure I just stated everything, because a lot of the notes were based on the photos. The second that Spirit heard the audio, they loved it. A lot of things about, like, you know, make the face whiter in color, make the veins sharper, sideburns on his hair, hands same color as face. Things like that. It might not have actually been originally commissioned by Spirit. I think they just kind of like adopted it as their own. But really, that's about it. I guess at one point the mouth was out of sync, but yeah, that's all I've got for Count Vigor. A ton of information, but I hope you enjoyed. You have to comment down below and let me know what you thought of this, if there's anything in particular you found interesting, and all of that. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.